There are two outlines you're going to need for every speech you do this semester. One is the preparation outline. One is your speaking outline. Each of these outlines have very specific purposes and have very distinctive features that we need to bear in mind as we're preparing them for the speech. Your preparation outline is the outline that you use in the writing of your speech. It's also the one that you're going to turn into me when you deliver your speech or record it and then upload it online. That's what you're going to send to me for the grading. So the preparation outline is a much more formal outline than your speaking outline. The first thing you need to do in the creation of your preparation outline is to state the specific purpose of the speech. Now, we've discussed the specific purpose when we were talking about the purpose statement and the central idea in a previous unit. That purpose statement, to inform, to persuade, that should be at the top of your paper, right below the title of the speech. And it is required for all the speeches you do. And remember, that purpose changes, whether it's an informative speech, a persuasive speech, a commemorative speech. But it has a general purpose to inform, to persuade, to celebrate, and then a specific purpose to inform my audience about the effects of marijuana on patient memory. And just like you had to have a purpose statement in our previous lectures on purpose statement and central idea, you need to have the central idea. What is the takeaway message, the residual message that you want your listeners to have at the end of the speech? That should be typed directly below the purpose statement. So the first two elements of the outline are your purpose statement, your central idea. The third thing you need to do in the preparation outline is to label the introduction, the body, and the conclusion of your speech. Now, I know that sometimes these instructions that we give on for things like these outlines often seem very arbitrary. Why do we have to have these things in this order? But please believe me when I say this is the framework for everything else that you're going to do involving this speech. And if it's right, you've laid a firm foundation that you can build from to create an effective presentation. The other thing to remind you, on just a very, very basic level, this is what I'm going to be looking for as I grade the outline. And so the best possible advice I can give you is to give me what I've explained to you in the lecture. And so it might seem arbitrary, it might seem very specific, but follow the instructions and put them there. It'll make your outline stronger, it'll make your presentation stronger. Fourth thing you need to do in preparing your preparation outline is to use a consistent pattern of symbolization and indentation. This means that as you write the outline, make sure, first of all, that you're using the correct labels or symbols. Your main points should have Roman numerals. Your major points should be capital letters. Your subpoints should be Arabic numerals. And if you have sub-points, they should be lowercase letters. Included here an illustration from our textbook that shows what the main points, subpoints, sub-subpoints, and sub-sub-subpoints of an outline should look like. Now, there are other formats for outlines out there, but this is the one that I prefer to use. And since that's what I'm going to be basing grading on, I highly recommend using this format. Also note the indentation. You indent with each new level of subpoint that you employ in your outline. Now, again, this feels like a really arbitrary thing. Why do we have to have these indents? But the point is that outline is a diagram of the structure of your speech. And so these indentations are part of showing the importance or the prominence that each of these points and subpoints and sub-sub-subpoints should have. I should also point out to you that just because of the rules of outlining, if you're going to have a point A, a main point A, then you should, by definition, have a main point B that follows it. If you don't have a main point B, then there was no point to list main point A. It was just the body. And so for each structure or point you introduce in the outline, there must be at least one other to justify its presence. If you're going to have capital A subpoint, you've got to have capital B subpoint. If you're going to have Arabic numeral 1 subpoint, then you must have a Roman numeral 2 subpoint, and on down the line. If you don't have 2, then there's no point to have the 1. Also, every point of your speech, every subpoint, every subpoint should be a complete sentence. If you're going through your outline by point, by subpoint, by subpoint, and you're writing each of them as a complete sentence, when you get finished with that outline, that's basically your speech. Now, you're not going to get up in class or in front of a video and read your outline, but the point is, by the time you've finished creating the outline in full sentences, what you've created should be, to all extents and purposes, what you're going to say in the body of your speech. You also need to label the transitions, the internal summaries, the internal previews, all the connectives that go to make your speech. This seems like one of those picky points, but the fact is, if you take the time to list this connective, this transition, this internal preview, this summary, in the body, in the outline of your speech, then you're that much more likely to deliver that internal preview, that internal summary, to include that in your spoken presentation when you deliver the speech. If you don't write it in, you're more likely to leave that out. Finally, you need to attach a bibliography to your outline. Please notice I use the word bibliography, not a works cited. You are not just listing anything that you are quoting from. I want to know anything you read in preparation for your outline. So it's a bibliography. It is a list of all sources. And that bibliography should be done in the MLA format, the Modern Language Association format. You will find style guides for that on the internet if you don't have a written style guide. Now, the other outline you're going to prepare before you deliver a speech is your speaking outline, your delivery outline. And it is for your use only. The preparation outline is for me and for you as you're writing the speech, but it's what I grade. The delivery outline, or the speaking outline, is the outline that you will use when you stand up to make your formal speech. And it's a much different kind of outline. First, you need to be very careful that as you create your speaking outline, you are using the same framework that you used in your preparation outline. Again, I've included an illustration from our textbook, and on the left side of the illustration is an ineffective outline. As you look, you'll notice that they've lost all their indentation, and so there's no visual structure to follow as you deliver the outline, as you deliver the speech. Everything is just brought to the left-hand column, and this is going to make it harder to follow. It's going to make it harder to keep your place. It's going to make it harder to have a sense of where you are in the speech. Now, the outline on the right column, right side of the page, shows the very same outline, but with the indentations, the same indentation structure from the preparation outline. It's much easier to follow. It's much easier to get a sense of the structure of the speech looking at this outline. The speaking outline is for your use in delivering the speech, and so you want to make a tool that you can easily follow, that you won't get lost in. And those indentations help to make your outline easier to follow as you're delivering the speech. This might seem like one of those no-duh kind of points, but you also need to make sure that your outline, your speaking outline, is legible, that you can read what you've put on the note card. How many times over the course of teaching a speech class, I've seen a student get up, go to the lectern, and take out his cell phone or her cell phone, pull up their outline, and try to read it from their cell phone. It's too small. They can't read it. It's not legible. Or they've written it by hand and their handwriting is illegible. This is a tool for you. Nobody else is going to see it. You've got to be able to read it. I would still recommend typing, but it's not required. You can handwrite the speaking outline, but you've got to make sure that you can read it and that you won't get lost in it. Next, you need to keep your speaking outline as brief as possible. the wordier your outline is, the more material you have recorded on that note card, the easier it's going to be for you to get lost during delivery. And so keep it as brief as possible, as little as you can put on the card, and still cue yourself or remind yourself where you're supposed to be at every given point in your speech. Remember, the goal is not to be reading from a manuscript, but to be delivering a speech extemporaneously from a very brief outline. Finally, you need to use your speaking outline as a place to record some simple cues, things that you want to remind yourself of as you deliver the speech. Perhaps you want to remind yourself to slow down, to not go too fast. Perhaps you want to remind yourself before you begin the speech to take a moment, to take a breath before you dive in. Maybe you want to remind yourself to make eye contact at certain points in the speech. I would even recommend for these visual cues that you're giving yourself to write that in a different color. Maybe put that in red so that you'll catch it as you're going through your outline. Oh, at this point I need to slow down and smile at my audience, or at this point I should move away from the lectern to make the next point. These, again, are for your use only, because nobody's going to see what's on that note card but you. So there are small, brief cues to remind you to do things as you're doing the speech. Now, I've included 2 handouts that you'll find on the handout section of the unit that have some material I've taken directly from our textbook. They are sample preparation outlines and sample speaking outlines with commentary, telling you why things are done a certain way, how they work. It's in the textbook, but I know how these things work, and sometimes you might miss those things. So I thought I would pull them out and include them directly as a handout for this unit. So I hope that helps. I hope it's been an informative lecture, and next we'll talk about visual aids.